I don't know if you can hear this. I've got a headset on, so I'm thinking you probably can. So I wanted to upload a video. I was walking in a dollar store today and I bought this jar of shells, and it kind of triggered a thought in me of, you can just see the price on this, $2.50. And I thought about it, and the idea came to me that somewhere there's some people walking along beaches just picking up every single shell they can find. It's shell upon shell upon shell. And stripping beaches of shells so they can sell them to a buyer in the local market and make a little bit of money to support their family. Those shells all come to this company that Home Deco is the company here, and they put these shells in here, and then they come to somebody like me who for $2.50 Canadian can have this jar. I can take the label off and I can put it in on a shelf and never touch it again. There's a whole bunch of concepts in there that speak to the state of the world right now, society that we live in. And I wanted to talk about that. The materialist culture that we have. Object fetishism. These shells don't even mean anything to us anymore. They're just something to be held and to be held onto and to be possessed. That's not to speak of the animal that lived in, the animal that grew this shell. There's a mollusk that lives these shells for a certain amount of time and then dies. And then the shell is perhaps picked up by crabs and used as a shelter. And I don't know how old these shells are. I don't know how long they take to grow. More time than it takes to pick them up and sell them to somebody in the market. We can deplete these shells far quicker than we can, and they can be replaced. I don't know how many Dollarama stores there are in North America, but perhaps there's, let's say there was 10,000 and there was 6 on the store in which I was walking, and there's, let's say there's a dozen shells in there. So 60,000 times a dozen, just for the sake of easy numerology. That's 6 million, say, of these shells. And I don't know how long they'll take to sell out, maybe a couple of weeks. 60 million shells a week, or say 60 million shells a month might go through the stores of Dollarama in North America. And the store will make perhaps $1 on this jar and everything. Will consume these shells. Maybe we'll destroy the animals in the process, because maybe somebody will be like, you know what, if we go out into the water, we can scoop them out of the water with the mollusks still in them. They'll find a more efficient way to turn one of these shells into a couple of pennies so their family doesn't starve. Not considering how long it took to actually, the energy that went into making these shells. Not considering that the world that these shells live in is the same world they live in. The materialist culture takes the world and it puts it over there. The environment, it's called. We have environmentalism. And the environment is an object over there that we have to protect. We aren't part of the environment. We are either destroying it or protecting it, as though it was the shirt that we wear, or it's an object over there. object fetishism. It's another object to be fetishized, the universe. And it comes from something that's very, very effective. It comes from the scientific, Cartesian, dualistic world that we've come to inhabit. We've very effectively turned the world into an object which is to be exploited or protected, to be destroyed or saved. And there's money to be made on both sides of that decision, because money is the thing that is to be respected above all things. Materialism is the process by which we turn the world into a set of objects to be traded. So I was walking in the store. I was almost just going to take a picture of it and show you just the picture of it on my phone, because I didn't want to participate in the destruction. But I figure what I might be able to do, there's beaches near where I live, and perhaps I could take these down to the beach and throw them into the water, and maybe the local hermit crabs could use them as shelter. Or perhaps some little children could find them and find them beautiful, and maybe, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll just keep it as an object to remind me of what I'm talking to you about right now. We're coming to the point where the world is changing, and the materialistic culture is causing problems that we're having to spend a lot of money to overcome. We're not even repairing them, we're overcoming them somehow. And to overcome an obstacle doesn't remove it for somebody else. It's out of my way. They're like hurdles. The hurdler jumps over the hurdle that leaves it intact. And that's how we're handling the problems that we're creating as we move through the world. Like hurdles to be overcome. We're finding more and more efficient ways to overcome the hurdles that we're assembling for ourselves. But we aren't actually doing anything about looking at, oh, look, we've built this hurdle. We've created this thing. And it's bothering us. We're having to create workarounds. We're having to create solutions. It's 2021, and we've been at this for about 12,000 years now. And I liken it to, and I'll probably make another video about the first grain silo. The first grain silo is where this all began. Because the first grain silo was the first thing that created an artificial value. A truly artificial value. The value of the person who's sitting on top of the silo, at the door to the silo, who adds nothing to the value of the grain, but protects it from being stolen. The person sat there and he was compensated to sit there, maybe by a portion of the grain, maybe some of his grain was in it. And then he was like, you know what, I'll take other people's grain in and all. It was the first bank. And the silo added no value to the actual grain, other than the fact it could be stored and kept. And that value has been inflated and inflated. And now we have entire classes of objects which are to be stored and kept and never touched. And this jar of shells, I don't know, there's creatures that lived in these for their entire lives and then died in them. And we don't consider that when we take them and we put them in a jar. Perhaps it's in the back of our mind, which is why we even create this, because we realize the innate beauty of one of these. I'll take one out here. It'll take me a second, but I'll take one out. Here's one. Look. This object was assembled piece by piece. It was grown by that mollusk. It was grown molecule by molecule by something that was protecting itself from the world. And now it's become some fetish item to be put into a jar, corked up, and only looked at forever. And I think by doing this to an object like these shells, it reveals that what we're doing is we're doing that to ourselves. We've turned ourselves into an object to be held aside. We've turned one another into objects to be fetishized and looked at and never touched again. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this and ask any questions you might have about anything that I've talked about here. I'm going to start releasing more of these videos, and I'd like to start conversations about things like this. I'd like to talk about these sorts of things because things are changing in the world. And I'd like to talk to you, and I'd like to connect with you, and I'd like to connect with people around the world like we can. I think these things are important, and I'm really glad that you took the time out of your day to watch this video. If you'd give it a like, if you'd subscribe to the channel, if you'd share it with a friend who you think might find something in the video, I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much.